Hey, I've got something to show you. There's a new Gen 8. So it looks like Redcat Racing is still making some big changes. One of them being they've got a brand new logo. I think it looks pretty cool. Let me know what you think about it in the comments section below. What else they've been doing? They came out with this. This is the Redcat Racing Gen 8 Axe. And this is for those of you that want high-end electronics in your kit right from the start. You don't want to upgrade later on down the road. You want the good stuff. And obviously there are a bunch of other changes, and we're going to go over those here as well. And one of the big changes is to the Scout body. Now, the International Scout body is a favorite for a lot of people. A lot of people were excited when the original came out, the ready to run back there, and a lot of people started modifying it. I think Redcat Racing saw that, and they went and offered it right out of the box in a custom form, so you could go and take it to another level. But let's take a closer look at this. Obviously, it's offered in black now. I've got the white stripes on here. They have a decal set with some other stripes as well, so you go customize it to the way you want it to look. Up front here, we got the International Scout grille. That remains unchanged. We could still go and put some LED lights in there. Same with the rear of the vehicle. We could go put LED lights in the taillights. So basically the bottom section hasn't changed from the original. The big changes here is obviously they chopped the top. We've got a clear windshield. We've got a cage to cover up the interior along with a soft top. This is a fabric soft top that you can actually go and remove, but I think it's really cool that they went and included this. Basically 2 screws hold it in the front. It's got a Velcro flap in the back that secures it. Pretty easy to take on and off, but it has that custom look. I don't think anybody else has had a soft top. I might be wrong on that one right out of the box, but that is a nice addition. So inside is now an interior. We've got actual molded bucket seats. They're plastic seats. There is a plastic dashboard. What's pretty cool about the dashboard is you can go add LED lights to the back of the gauge cluster in there as well. Light it up. It's got a steering wheel in there. We've got a shifter knob, and then we got a bunch of decals that go and basically give it some extra detail on the inside. Floor mats, center console, obviously the gauge cluster and everything. Looks pretty good. And in the back, the spare tire fits right in there. It's got a mount to secure it, and gives it a cool custom look again. Let me just swing this around so you can see the back of it. Looks a lot more custom, and it's just going to be awesome out there on the trail. Still have the same fender flares on the front and back, and same Velcro mounting system that we had before. And it seems like it fits pretty well. Maybe just a touch of an offset difference between the inner fenders and the inner structure of the body, but this seems to drop right on, and it seems to fit. And you could of course go later on down the road, put some magnets in there if you want to use the magnet system to secure it. All right, let me pop this off. And there it is. You can see the inner fender wells, just like we had before on the original Ready to Run, and a bunch of hardware to secure the interior parts. But nice looking body, Redcat. It really steps up the custom look of this vehicle. And now we can talk about some of the changes that occurred to this vehicle, because it's not a stock Ready to Run. It's not the Ready to Run that we saw before. That is still going to be available. The pack is going to be available. This is just another addition to the lineup. And of course, they took that opportunity to make some changes. So we've got the same front rear bumpers. We've got the same inner fenders and same chassis, same overall design as far as the suspension goes, and portal axles, center transmission, and everything like that. But let me start off in the front where the changes really start to happen. I'm gonna leave the electronics for last. But one of the big changes to start off with is the servo horn. So the original servo horn, we had some bump steer with that. I didn't really mind it that much. I didn't think it was too big of a deal, but for those looking for a precision driving experience, it was a bit of a problem for them, so they would swap out the servo arm. So Redcat has gone ahead and redesigned that. It's still a metal servo arm, and it pretty much eliminates the majority of the bump steer, pretty much all of it. So you're really not going to have a problem with that out on the trail. The other big change that they made is to the axles. So there is now a dual shear point for the shock to mount to. Before we just had a single point, so now it is secured on both sides. So there won't be an issue there when the shock is cycling. So basically there's a new C-hub on there and a new mounting point on the axle itself. So that's a pretty big change. The other big change is the drive cup, the gear cup for the universal that is in the steering knuckle. Basically before, that was an item that would break, and and actually, if you would steer too far, you would get a notchy feeling, and then that would eventually lead to the cup breaking. And Redcat was pretty good about it. They went and basically sent out a bunch of replacement parts for a lot of people that had that problem. But these have the new version. There's a lot more material there, and they basically redesigned it so you don't get that notchy feeling anymore as you're driving and turning. So that's a nice welcome change. Now, let me just flip over to the rear, because the rear also got the dual shear points for the lower shock mount and a revision basically to the lower axle. And then the outer portal hub housings got a little bit of a redesign as well. There's a bit more material here. If I measured it correctly, it's about 2 millimeters thicker than the older version, so that will pretty much eliminate breakage in a hard crash. Another thing I was told that was revised here is the center skid plate. So let me flip that over. Bet a lot of people are going to be excited about this one. So no more bump in the lower skid plate. And there's also a revision to where they tweak the link mounts a little bit. There's an extra plate here that I noticed that's a little bit different. And from what I was told, it's just a slight revision. So the geometry is a little bit better there for better handling, obviously. All right, moving along. The transmission. The transmission I thought was pretty good. It had wide Mod 1 composite gears in there before, but now they went all metal. So there's all metal gears inside the transmission and inside the transfer case. The only plastic gear in here is the spur gear, which, a lot of companies use a plastic spur gear, composite plastic spur gear. So I'm totally cool with that, but it's nice. All metal now. That's very cool. And since we have an upgraded power system in there, that is a welcome change in my book. All right, I think that's pretty much it. There is now aluminum bar up in the front instead of the plastic plate that goes across between the shock towers. This will still be included with the kit if you want to go put it in the front. Reason why they did this, from what I was told, is it just makes it easier during the assembly process for them. So they went and put that bar in. It's a nice sturdy bar, so that works for me. Now, I think it's finally time to talk about the electronics. It now has a Reefs 422 HD servo in there. That is pretty awesome. If you know about Reef servos, you know they offer some great servos specifically tested for individual use, like crawler use. When you drop a Reef servo in, you know it's going to work really, really well in that application. And so Redcat Racing worked with Reefs to include this servo with this kit. This is a high voltage servo, and it's got tons of torque, which is of course what people want. A lot of people go and swap out the servo right from the start. You don't need to do that. This thing is going to work perfectly right out of the box. It's a Reef servo. And the only other thing to note about it is dual branded. So it's got the Redcat logo on there, the new one, and it's got the Reefs logo on there as well. The other big change is the speed controller and the motors. We have a Hobbywing Z-Run Axe system in here. It's a sensored brushless system. Really nice speed controller here. I think a lot of people like this speed controller. I have not used it myself. I'm really interested in trying it out. But from what I could tell, it's got the right profiles for crawling. Nice heat sink on here. Waterproof. Got the switch over here with the set button. Looks like it's waterproof as well. Comes fitted with a T-plug on it. Also has Bluetooth, so you could connect it with the Hobbywing app, which is pretty cool. And then we've got all the wires pre-run from the factory over to the 2300 kV motor. It's obviously, again, a brushless motor, sensored motor, and should have the proper torque for this particular vehicle. And, really nice. This is like a $200 system that's in this truck, and that means you don't have to go and buy it later. And it's already pre-wired. You just have to go drop in a battery. That's the only thing you gotta supply and go and run it. The other big change is the radio system too. So we've got a new receiver in here that mates up with the FlySky GT5 radio. Now this again is a radio system you're probably not gonna want to go and swap out. It's a good radio system. We've got a digital display on here which allows you to go and trim everything out with ease because you're able to see what's going on. It's a 6-channel radio if I remember correctly, so you've got extra functionality if you want to go add a winch onto the front or something like that. And it's easy to scroll through all the different menus with the dial and the push buttons and everything. Nice foam wheel, nice handle to it. Easy to reach the auxiliary knobs and buttons here. So I like this radio. I've never actually had one. I don't think I've had one of these. But again, this is another thing I'm interested in trying out. Looks pretty good. All right, the final thing that I forgot to tell you pretty much early on here is the wheels. So we've got new black rims on the truck, obviously to go along with the look. We've got the silver aluminum beadlock ring that basically secures the Interco Super Swamper tires. It still has that pretty firm foam in there, and it's cold right now, so these are pretty solid. Wish they kind of went and found a softer foam, but you know, you could go out and swap them because they are bead locked, so you could go pull these apart pretty easily. But other than that, we've got the same features that we loved before: aluminum shocks, the portals with the metal gears on the inside, slider drive shaft in the center with metal universals, and the steel frame in the center. I mean, lots of good stuff here. I am going to go drop a battery in this thing, head out, and see how it does on the rocks. I really think I'm going to have a talk with Redcat because they keep releasing these cool vehicles in the winter time, and I don't like going out in the cold. But I had a great time driving the new Redcat Gen 8 Axe Edition, and you know, like the original, this is a very capable rig. And out there on the rocks, I mean, I just had a great time driving it. Actually, I would say even more than I did the original because this new electronics package makes this truck so much more capable. It's so much easier to drive nice and slow and scale-like through the rocks, you know, crawling up dirt mounds and stuff like that. It looks really awesome out there, and it's just so easy to control. I really like what they've done here. You know, let's break things down a little bit more, and let's start off with the steering. The rear servo in here has a lot of power, and you know, I looked at the settings on the speed controller. Is set to 6 volts. So that is a little under 400 ounce-inches of torque, if I remember correctly, looking at the stats on their site. That is still a lot of turning power. And if I read the app correctly, it looks like you could program the speed controller to be 7.4 volts. I'm new to this hobby wing setup. I have not had one before, but it showed it in there that I could switch over to it. So that would give it the full 422 ounce-inches of torque. It's got plenty of turning power, and you didn't get that notchy feeling when you were at full lock. From the axles bottoming out. It just had plenty of power to shift the front of the vehicle, had plenty of power to just turn this thing right around when necessary, when navigating through the rocks. I really like that they have this servo in here, and I think it does a great job. Now onto the axe system in here. I mean, it's just butter smooth. You can just achieve a nice slow crawl just touching the throttle. You don't have that lag at the bottom, that startup power that, you know, like the brush system. You have a little bit of hesitation there. You don't have that here. It's just a nice smooth power band, and when you're crawling up, you know, a rock, you don't have any hesitations either. That the power is there for just nice smooth consistency, and that's just key when you want to, you know, crawl smooth. You want to crawl scale. You know, this system is set up just right. This radio system, really comfortable and easy to navigate through the functions of it. And just overall, it was great that they went and selected this stuff. You know, it's great electronics gear that you're not going to have to upgrade. Now, onto the vehicle itself, you know, again, it's pretty much the same setup. We have the same high clearance axles on here, the portal axles getting over the rocks, you know, and nothing really getting hung up there. The skid plate on the bottom, I definitely noticed the improvement there. There's a peaked rock on the mountain where I go to run, and it always gets hung up, or a lot of vehicles always get hung up on that peaked rock, and this, it was able to glide right over it, and so that new skid plate in the center is very welcome on this kit. The suspension tweak that they did, I didn't notice it, but again, you know, the truck handled really well. I was able to side hill some of the rocks, maybe a bit more. You know, I think that there is a lot of high weight here still with the spare tire up top and the cage and everything. I don't know. It just seemed more capable to me than it did before, and maybe it was just the addition of the electronics that was blowing my mind as far as, you know, the new capability of the truck. But it is a great truck. I didn't really flip it or drop it off any cliffs or anything like that to really give you any durability upgrades, but they went and they bulked things up. So, you know, I have to assume that this is going to be a much stronger vehicle. The gear train in here is pretty loud in my opinion. And I took it apart. There's a lot of grease in there, so I wouldn't really worry about, you know, packing it with more grease unless you're going through water and stuff. Has plenty of grease from the factory, but it was noisy. So maybe I would go and put some more in. I don't know. Just a heads up on that one. I had a lot of people looking at me like, what is he driving over there? Because it was rather noisy. But overall, it's a great rig. A lot more predictable now. A lot more fun to drive. And, you know, I think people are really going to enjoy it. You know, what can I ding them on? Well, you know what, guys? They should have included some LED lights at this point. You know, I said in one of my other videos, all crawlers should come with LED lights at this point. and I think they should have thrown 4 in here. I think they also should have maybe, sourced out some different foams for the tires. When I was hitting rocks with this thing at a higher pace, it would just bounce up or bounce off the rock, and really, sometimes it would roll over. So maybe sourcing out the different foams. And there's other little tricks out there to soften up the foams that are in here, but the tires are good. I like these tires. It's just a foam issue. Other than that, I think, I probably would have liked to have seen them tweak the chassis a little bit, maybe the shock towers, maybe the shock positions on this. Just because a body selection is a little bit limited because of the length of the chassis. I actually put a couple bodies on my original Gen 8 where the chassis, the frame rails were sticking out. So maybe a tweak there would have been nice. I'm just trying to think of things I would have wanted to have seen improved on this. But overall, again, I mean, for out of the box, it's got a cool custom look to it. It's got great electronics. They've fixed pretty much everything I'm aware of that was an issue on the first one, and they've created this great kit at a pretty good price point. It's $500 when you add everything up. That's a pretty good deal. And really, if you've been waiting for a Gen 8 kit, you've been toying with it in your mind, this is the one to get. This is the one you're going to enjoy on whatever terrain you want to crawl on.